in education, communication, and outreach. The partnership, this public awareness thing, obviously a really big piece, and really trying to do the broad, get people's attention, media, hey, there's a problem, use all the media outlets we can, and then when people's attention is caught, and they go, oh my goodness, something's going on, where do I find out more, what do I do, how do I get engaged? That's where you all come in. So about the first part is about the first part this morning, and then I'm going to come in for the second part.
Great. Again, thank you all for coming. A couple months ago, Kristen and I were talking, and she said, well, let's have this summit to kick everything off. And my first reaction is, well, how much is that going to cost? And she said, well, I think we could get a couple hundred people from across the town to come to this. And I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's do it. And here we are today. This is great. As the communications director, there's a lot going on in the communications shop and partnership. So EcoNet and everything we're doing, I would characterize as kind of the one wing of what we're working on. It's clearly the foundation of our overall program. That's why I said, how much does it cost? Let's do it. Let's make this thing happen. A little history. About a year ago, Bill Ruckelshaus, in his kind of artful way of how he spends 5 minutes to tell you to do something, basically said, how do you get 4 million people in Puget Sound to get behind this and do the right things in their lives? And kind of left the meeting like, well, I better go hire someone then. We're going to need some help. And so Kristen came on board and has been doing a really great job working with all of you through our steering committee and others and doing a lot of meetings. She's going to be increasingly more busy, I think, as we get going. And so as we go through kind of our current thinking, I don't want to characterize this as a plan because that suggests it's done and we're not changing anything. But we wanted to just give you guys a sense of kind of the thinking that we've been doing over the last year around public awareness, public education, involvement. And obviously it's a start. And, we think we've landed on some concrete ideas that we want to start moving forward on. We think if we had this meeting 3 years from now, you would see more going on than just this. That's our expectation. It was real tempting a year ago when Kristen came on to run out and say, let's go do this and this and this. And we really stepped back and made a real strategic kind of some decisions. One is no new program. Puget Sound does not need another public education involvement volunteer program. It's all going on out there at some level. We just need to kind of harness that information. And we said EcoNet is the foundation for that. And it's really where we think the partnership can add value. And what can we do to bring people together to increase kind of networking, increase resource sharing, collaboration. We kind of view that as kind of the role of the partnership, and EcoNet is what I kind of characterize as kind of the boots on the ground. They're going to achieve all that. So that's kind of our worldview and a real several months of thinking about this. So let me go through the kind of overall, our current thinking. Obviously, it'll probably spur some ideas. Folks want, if we have time, we can do a little Q&A at the end. I'm guessing there will be some questions, and we can take them as they at the end. It would probably be easier so we don't get bogged down. Really in a nutshell, this is kind of our guiding belief. This is what, when every day someone sends me a proposal and says we need funding, this is the lens that I view things through. That's why Kristen says I say no all the time. Really, if you look at where we are today in Puget Sound, this is kind of our pyramid. Awareness and understanding leads to support, leads to behavior change, leads to investment, hopefully, ultimately action. Right now, our polling shows we're about 21% of people get this. That is stunningly low for any issue. To think that you're going to get significant action behavior to have that number being that low. And you can look at any issue. You could take climate change 15 years ago. It's probably even lower than that. Here we are 15 years later, and you kind of have that tipping point that was reached, and now you see concerted action on it. So, this is not to say let's full pack it in and give it up, but what it does suggest is a key goal is the public has to understand we have a problem. That's just fundamental to getting people to do things, and there's different ways you can attack that. Some people don't like the overly negative. Some people lean towards you got to sell it in a real positive way. Hopefully, the way we're going to approach it kind of bridges those two worlds. But at the end of the day, the public has to, at some level, understand Puget Sound is struggling and in trouble. Unless we get that number up to 50 to 60%, it's not to say we won't achieve great things, but I don't think you're going to get that tipping point that everyone envisions at some point in time. This becomes kind of the mass consciousness. What you see in those other, climate change is probably the most the most analogous. Once Al Gore did his documentary, it was all over. It wins Academy Awards. So in a real high level nutshell, and this, just right, Krista, the presentation is going to be on our website, and we resisted printing 200 copies out today in the hopes that you guys can just watch it on the screen. So it'll be posted on our website. You can download it if you want, and other information will be up there. But really, how do we raise and sustain kind of this public awareness about the threats? And we'll get into how we're attacking that problem. How do we build and sustain this coalition? This is where Econet is kind of fundamental to this. How do we focus attention on actions people can take? And we can talk a little bit about that. That is an area that we are starting to delve into, and I call it, whenever I go around and I get the 10 things you could do for Puget Sound, the 25 things you could do for sound, the 5 things you should be doing for Puget Sound. It seems as if we need to start reaching some priorities around the actions at some level, that it's not real effective to tell people 25 things, 5 things that are different, and there's no prioritization around them. It seems like Econet can play a real valuable role in trying to get priority messages, and they might be different in different areas, that's fine, but having 25 things to do it's too overwhelming for the public. We've got to get it down to 3, 2, maybe 1, at least for now. And how do we do that, have it being science-based? One of the things I've discovered digging into this is there's very little science supporting any of the actions people are being asked to do. So there's no one to tell you scooping your dog poop is better for Puget Sound than lawn products versus do something with your car or water. Where's the science that could support what are the most effective things people should be doing? And then you got to balance that with what are the things people are willing to do. You can't have 3 things that no one wants to do, even though they're ecologically the best. And then finally, last is, at the end of the day, we've got to deliver on the action agenda. Things have to get done. We have to drive progress. The expectation is that people are more aware about the threats, they're more supportive, they're more increasingly talking to their elected officials, their policymakers. Maybe they'll vote the right way, maybe they'll get behind things, maybe they'll show support in terms of just actions. And this is the stuff that's, restoration, protection, all of those kind of projects that need to get done. This is a little doom and gloom, but hopefully we end more positive than this. Obviously at 21%, we have a very low, poll number right now. And there's a lot of theories of, how could that be? I get this all the time. You read in the paper a litany of stories about what's going on. How could we have such a low number? I have kind of different theories about it. One is that we're much better at selling our successes than our failures. And if you look at what every government agency puts out, they love holding events where they cut ribbons, but no one's talking about when we're falling behind. There's a lot of other theories about that. Obviously, economy has moved to the front of the issue. When we first started a year ago, it was education, transportation, healthcare, but now economy's rocketed up. Clearly, multi-year efforts are hard to sustain over time because you get these ebbs and flows of energy and resources. So how do you kind of keep this baseline going? And there will be spikes and there'll be ebbs, and that's okay. But how do we keep the current at a level that maintains that energy over time? And the good news is our polling and focus group work that we've done is people will move from where they are at 21%. You can get them to move if you deposit the problem in a way that they will move. It's not as if it's more just they don't get it, they don't know what's going on. It's not as if they're resistant to the idea, because we all know that 97% of them want a clean and healthy Puget Sound to pass on to their kids. So I think that's the positive in this. It's some issues I would call losers. This is not a loser issue. This is very winnable. We just have to get the right messages and everyone working together. I wanted to spend a little bit, because people like surveys, and we did a big one in July, which kind of crystallized some of our thinking on the public awareness end, and we will have the survey results on our website as well, so if you guys want to dig into them. They also can be broken out by sub-area, so if you live in the North Sound, we can break out the results, and you want to see what the 150 people we polled in the North Sound versus South Sound. So we can provide that, Kristen can do that. Basically in July, and this was pre-kind of economic meltdown, so I'm not sure if it's changed much, but just so you have that background. We did probably the largest poll that's ever been done. Typically you do about 500 residents. We did 2,000. And the reason was we wanted